so once again, we have somebody who is suggesting that if you are open carrying, that makes you more of a.
I don't know what target.
Yep. Now, this is one we hear a lot,
It's one of the three.
and it's something we've covered a lot, and we've made videos about it. You tend to cover it in every class you do, and we've definitely seen it as comments a lot that we've responded to.
Like I said, it's the biggest debated thing in the firearm community: open carry versus concealed carry, and everybody's got an opinion on it, and it's typically those three opinions. It's dumb, it makes me feel uncomfortable, or you're the first one to get shot. And yeah, we talk about it all the time.
Is there any evidence whatsoever that you are more of a target if you're open carrying?
So when I talk about this, the first thing I like to really make sure it's clear is we're talking about civilians. Every time I bring stats up like this, people always want to say something about cops and stuff. And it's like, outside of uniformed presence, like armed security or law enforcement, there's really no statistical data. There's nothing anywhere that can prove that you're the first one that's going to be targeted in an active shooter. I have not found any evidence to support that claim. We even asked Chat GPT, what did we say? Like, go through the last 30 years and find an active shooter where it was documented that a civilian was the first one to be targeted merely because they were open carrying, and there's nothing.
But we have seen documented cases where an active shooter went to a location, saw one or more person open carrying, and said, oh, I should be shooting somewhere else. Because let's face it, when you see somebody who is open carrying, logic will tell you there are people who are concealed carrying.
Yeah, there's no stats to really prove it, but they always say for every one person open carrying, there's 10 concealed carrying.
Yeah, and I would definitely believe that. I mean, we've had situations such as the Pulse nightclub shooter, for instance, where he wanted to go to Disney World when they were having their gay event. I don't remember what that event is called, but he arrived pushing a baby stroller with firearms in it, saw armed security, and said, oh, there's people here who are armed, turned around, left. He went and scouted out Pulse nightclub, saw that none of the bouncers were carrying. He knew, oh, this is a place that serves alcohol, therefore nobody inside will be allowed to be carrying. And so that was the location he chose.
Yeah, and you kind of bring up, the other side of my point to that is I always start off by saying, well, there's no data to prove that. There's nothing to prove that because you're open carrying, you're going to be the first one targeted. Now, I guess someone could say as well, how many active shooters actually live to tell the tale? And maybe we just haven't been able to interview them because they're dead, and maybe they did target. But even then, like, we normally there's videos and witness statements and things like that, and it's like, well, typically we would find a civilian armed and reconstruct a path and be able to see things. But even let's just say that okay, we don't really know the data. The fact of the matter is, again, going back to, there's really nothing to support that claim. Criminals are like water. They take the path of the least resistance. If they see that there is going to be resistance, they are more likely to go somewhere else. I know it's morbid to talk about, but if you look at statistics on active shooters at like colleges and high schools, there's almost always a student that has stepped in. But they're targeting elementary schools and high schools because 5 and 6-year-olds aren't going to fight you. And if they're not going to get very far if they try anyway. And I know that's morbid to say, but that's why they're targeting these places. It's the path of the least resistance. Not to mention, most elementary schools and middle schools don't have SROs. So yeah, I'm a firm believer that open carrying does prevent the possibility of an active shooter. They're more likely to see you as resistance and go somewhere else, not see you as that's going to be my first target. And this comes from the cop mentality, but I also say this to people too when people tell me that, and I say, oh, well, you're the first one that's going to be targeted. And I say, well, I carry to defend myself and others. If I was in the middle of Walmart and an active shooter popped off, I'm going to engage the threat. Now, not everybody who's carrying a firearm is carrying to engage a active shooter threat. Some people carry for personal defense and defense of their family. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'll be the first one to tell you, often I would rather get yourself and your family out of there rather than engaging the threat, because you may end up being a target or you may end up being a casualty. And I tell people in my training classes, it's like you have to determine for yourself if you're going to get yourself and your family out of there or if you're going to engage the threat. There's no wrong answer to that. A lot of it has to do with your confidence and ability and training. But going back to my point was, if that were valid, if I actually believe that to be true, that open carrying made you where you're going to be the first one to get shot, well, I still feel like I'm doing my job then. Because as a cop, I'm here to protect you and everybody else. So if somebody targets me first because I'm open carrying, that's going to let everybody else know that there's now an active shooter in the area and to get out. So I still feel like I did my job.
Now, I have seen examples, so, play the devil's advocate here, where a criminal has seen somebody open carrying and tried to steal their firearm. I've even read about scenarios where people have been successful, where somebody has been concealed carrying, saw somebody who was open carrying, pulled their firearm on them, made them raise their hands, stole their firearm. What would you say in response to that? Because that, I believe, is valid, because I can think of like 3 times I've seen that in the news in my life.
Well, typically when I teach these, I tell people there's pros and cons to concealed carrying and open carrying. And I like to give you the pros and cons of each, and then you determine for yourself how you want to carry. And that's how I think we need to be in the firearms community. I said it in another podcast that we are our own worst enemy. Is instead of nagging at people for doing one or the other, we should just be glad that they're supporting their Second Amendment right. And so, as an instructor, I've sat through several instructor classes. I've sat through several firearms classes. I've talked to others instructors. And as an instructor, one of my biggest pet peeves is instructors trying to force their ideology on you. It's like I've had instructors say that no one should carry one in the chamber. No one should carry status red. Everyone should carry status yellow. I've had some instructors that say everyone should carry status red. I've had instructors say that open carry and stupid. Instructors saying this stuff. And the thing is, as an instructor, I need to give you the pros and cons so you can weigh the pros and cons and determine for yourself what would be in your best interest. The pros and cons of open carrying. Well, the pro to open carrying is it's been statistically proven to reduce or prevent a threat. It also allows you to engage a suspect very quickly. And I've shown that, getting it out of an open carry holster is faster than getting it out of concealed carry, because now, let's say you're apex carrying, now I have to do that extra step. Wherever you're carrying it, there's an extra step now that you have to get to it. And I've had people say, well, with training and muscle memory, you can do it quickly. Yeah, you can. With training and muscle memory, you can become very proficient at getting it out of your apex carry holster. But the problem is most people aren't training to do that. Matter of fact, as an instructor, I know a lot of people who actually practice shooting, a lot of people who shoot very well because they go to the range and they're shooting, but almost nobody sits in their house, dry fires, takes the rounds out, dry fire, take your ammunition, and you sit here in front here or stand up, put a target up, and just practice going holstering and unholstering over and over again. However you're carrying, apex carry, small of the back, inside the waistband, on the hip, shoulder holster, belly holster, thigh holsters, ankle holsters, however you decide to carry, you need to be practicing getting that out and engaging a suspect. But nobody does that. When your heart rate goes up over 120 beats per minute, it's shown that you can lose 80% of your fine motor skills. Your fine motor skills. That means your ability to pick up your phone has decreased by 80% when shit hits the fan. So if you're not practicing doing this right now in a stable, controlled environment, more likely than not, you're not even going to be able to get it out of your holster anyway. What I tell people is, again, pro is you can get it out quickly. A con is, uh, a con to concealed carrying is it takes an extra step to get it out. And if you're not practicing that, you're probably not going to get it out in the first place. And in my opinion, most people aren't practicing that. And that's what I teach people, practicing getting it in out of the holster. So a con to open carrying is, to your point. Now, I tell people no one has legitimately given me a con to open carry. And I say it like this. I'm like, people always tell me those three things, but nobody's legitimately given me a con to open carry besides what I tell them. And I will give you a con. And the con is, to your point, well, people know you have it. And I'll describe it like this first, and then I'll kind of describe what you said. My concern is that someone could come up behind you and take it. I guess I'll hit on that in a second. But in Tennessee, anyway, there's a distinct definition between defensive force and deadly force. And you're more likely to be in a defensive force scenario where you have to defend yourself, but it doesn't escalate to deadly force. So let's say, for instance, I'm open carrying, somebody comes up to me, throws their hands up, does something where now I have to defend myself. I may now have to get in a scuffle, fighting match, whatever, however you want to say, a defensive force encounter where I have to defend myself without deadly force. And I have to make it very clear that I'm not reaching for my firearm, because the threat of deadly force without deadly force is illegal. So now I have to defend myself without making sure my firearm gets involved. And if I get in a scuffle with somebody, they're going to see my weapon, and it could possibly be used to try to get it and used against me. There's been 2 times that I can think in my law enforcement career where I fought for my gun. I was in a scuffle with a guy. He reached for it and started grabbing it. And that's why cops are required, or most agencies should require cops to carry triple retention holsters. Which brings me to my point of, well, if you're going to open carry, you need to have something with a good retention device. Because to your point, yes, there have been some documented cases. You and I watched that video of the guy that came up behind the guy and grabbed the gun right from behind him. If you're going to open carry, you should have a holster with retention in it, at least level 2, not even level 1. I'd say level 2. That's why cops carry level 3 retention, which means there's 3 different devices you have to deactivate to pull it out, which is going to prevent someone from coming up from behind me and taking it. If somebody comes up from behind me close enough to grab my gun, shame on me in the first place. But if somebody does come up from behind me and tries to grab my gun, they're more likely to rip my holster off of my belt than they are to get it out of the holster. And that's going to give me time to react. So yeah, I suppose there is that possibility that people could see it, to your point. But carrying that retention will almost alleviate that from happening.
So, what would you say to the people who go, well, if you're going to have 3 mechanisms you have to simultaneously undo, you might as well just be concealed carrying?
I have 2 responses to that. Number 1, even if you're concealed carrying, you should still have a retention device. You should not have a holster where your firearm could willy-nilly fall out. We saw that, what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago now at the Hardee's here in Madisonville. The guy had a holster that wasn't properly made for his gun. His gun fell out in the middle of Hardee's, and when he went to pick it up, he pulled the trigger and shot himself. It's like, you should be, I tell people, when you select your firearm, once you select the proper firearm for you, you then need to determine how do you want to carry it, open carry or concealed carry. And then from there, you have to select the appropriate holster for it. Yeah, there are some universal holsters. We sell universal holsters, but they have a strap. They have a retention on it. And I tell people when they buy our universal holsters, I say, these have a strap. Put your gun in it, lock it in, and then tip it upside down and make sure it's not going to fall out. So even if you're concealed carrying, you should have some type of retention device. Okay, maybe not level 3, but some type of retention device. But I divert back to, with training and muscle memory, you can get it out very quickly. And I demonstrate that with my level 2 open carry holster. I go to when I do the state class, when we go out to the range, because I can't do it in the classroom, we go out to the range, I demonstrate. You deactivate that with your thumb, you pull it out, and the first retention is it clicks in place. The second retention is the bar over it, and I demonstrate. And I practice over and over again. There'll be times where there's nobody in the store, and I'll walk around and I'll just go and practice pulling it out of my holster. So yeah, okay, people could argue, well, silver retention devices is going to make it slower. Not with muscle memory and training. The same thing I say about concealed carry. You could be open carrying with a double or triple retention device and be in the same situation. If you're not practicing, you can't get it out of your holster, and you might as well turn and run the other way. Either way, it still requires training that people aren't doing.
We have a local news story that I thought you would think was pretty relevant to us. This happened in Nashville. It says, couple chased by a knife-wielding man at the Bicentennial Park. A couple's walk at Bicentennial Park turned into a life-threatening chase when a man pulled out a knife and pursued them throughout the park on Saturday night. The woman, who wished to remain anonymous, said she and her boyfriend were visiting from Washington, D.C. when they encountered Thomas Milon, who appeared heavily intoxicated with a woman and was bothering other park visitors. The woman said she approached Milon to offer help. I was like, you guys be safe, like drink some water, she said. That's when Milan allegedly pulled out a knife, saying he was going to kill her, and began chasing the couple throughout the park. We felt trapped. It was such a big park. We were looking for anybody at the park, and screaming for help. We bumped into this guy with his dog, and we were like, there's a man running after us. Can you call 911? We need help. And the woman said even the man with the dog ran away. That guy was a real hero. Like, seriously. In the chase, the woman dropped her phone, which Milan picked up. She said Milan appeared to be enjoying the terror he was allegedly causing. He was scraping the knife like he was enjoying this. He was saying all these scary threats. He was also making these evil laughs like a Halloween vibe, just trying to scare us more. Just enjoying us being absolutely afraid for our lives.
The first thing I think of is when the comment on our last podcast with the guy was like, what did he say? Something he said.
He's like, if you feel the need to carry in a place like that, you're the problem.
Yeah, you're carrying around where people are just trying to be peaceful and stuff, and you're the problem. It's like, well, this is exactly why we carry. I mean, we see it all the time. This is just another thing that's happening. It's like, okay, well, if that were happening when we were walking around that day, and that lady came running up to us and said some guy's chasing her with a knife, you better be damn straight I'm engaging the suspect, right? It's like, no, I'm carrying to keep it peaceful. What are the chances? Now, that guy may have just been freaking off his rockers, but what are the chances that guy starts running up and sees us both open carrying? What are the chances you think he's going to continue to engage?
I mean, because I guess it depends on how intoxicated.
Yeah, I mean, he could have been very well off his rocker, but we would have absolutely stopped the threat and stopped the terrorizing from happening. It's like, to the point, everybody's running around, and it's like, I can't do anything. And everybody wants to talk about why we have a need to carry, and it's like, well,
I want to know, and this is something I've been noticing a lot of these days, and it's just kind of weird to me. What is with all these women who want to be saviors these days? Like, she sees a drunk person staggering around, she goes and makes sure he's drinking water. It's like,
yeah, that was kind of confusing.
That is so weird. And it's like, I'm seeing a lot of that, like on TikTok and YouTube, and it's like these women showing up and just being like, you're gonna get killed, okay? Just stop acting this way.
Choose the bear or the man, but you still go up to the man who's heavily intoxicated for some reason.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you need some water?
Well, they're from Washington, D.C., so that might tell you.
It's like
it's like, did she even have water to offer him? It's like, you should drink water. Bye. It's like, did you even have water?
I guess she could have pointed them towards the water fountain.
You think these people actually care what you're saying? Yeah.
Like, I would have been calling the cops to be like, yeah, there's some people publicly drunk in a park, and then the cops can give them water if they want. Like, I'm not going to go to a random drunk dude. Are you a happy drunk? Are you a funny drunk? I don't know, but I'm not going to find out. Well, if she found out.
Yeah, she found out. Yeah, for sure. And thank God that it ended without anybody getting hurt. But we all know how that could have ended.
And the fact of the matter is, everybody ran from one man with a knife. And it couldn't have been a very big one for her to not even notice that he pulled out. It was probably like a pocket knife, like a little buck knife or something. And suddenly everybody is running away. And to her, she's like, it's like a horror. It's like Halloween. It's like, it shouldn't have been a big deal. And it was, because she was in a place where nobody was armed.
Why do I carry? Because of that, right there. I mean, it shouldn't even be a debate. We're seeing it all the time, and that just brings me up to a whole different conversation, and we won't get into right now about we've been killing each other for thousands and thousands of years before guns. They want to take away our guns, but we were doing it well before guns were, and it's like, what do you think is going to happen if we take away everybody's guns?
We will see a rise in knife crimes and in vehicle crimes.
Yeah, nobody's going to be able to stop the knife wielding guy unless you have a knife too. And then anybody who knows anything about knife fights, somebody always gets cut.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
so I got to defend myself, and we're getting into this.
The person who's stronger or more trained.
Yeah. Now I got to get into this knife fight. We're going to start carrying around freaking samurai swords or something. It's like,
yeah, and then those will be banned.
Yeah.
And then soon we'll be like the UK, where they have like stab-proof knives. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I can't honestly, I don't know if they're anti-gun or liberals or Republicans or anything like that. And, I, I don't want to assume because they come from Washington, D.C., but it makes one want to lean towards. So part of me goes, man, I wish there was a homegrown, or, not even homegrown, just a Tennessee person, gun-toting guy that was there, or woman that was there,
gun-toting Republican,
and she runs up and they
put an
end to it, and she goes, and it's like, oh, maybe we do need guns to defend ourselves.
Well, one of the things that people who carry, like, they promote is that's fear in criminals of their victims. A criminal should be afraid of his victims. He says, I would like to break into that house, but I'm not going to because I'll get shot. I would love to attempt to attack this woman, but I'm not going to. I would be shot. How many times have you talked to somebody and you brought up the concept of a crime and their response is, yeah, I wouldn't do that. I'd get shot. Like, I've heard that. Like, for instance, saying like, I didn't suggest, I was talking about a situation that had happened. And I'd said, yeah, before you know it, someone's going to break into their house. And the person I was talking to is like, I wouldn't break into a house here in this area of East Tennessee. I'd get shot. And that's the thing is, even if that guy, most likely that guy was just a moral person who wouldn't do it anyway. But the fact of the matter is, in East Tennessee, in Monroe County, people are afraid to break and enter. Why? Because they don't want to die. And I guarantee you, unless that person just moved here yesterday from a blue state and they're still blue state minded and they don't think about things like this, because some things don't even cross your mind. It's like you're not used to this lifestyle, you're not used to these things being normal, and so it doesn't even cross your mind. But you take anybody who's like born and raised around here and you bring up the concept of breaking and entering, their response most likely is going to be, I wouldn't do that. I don't want to be shot. And that's how it should be. It should be somebody says, I'm not going to get drunk, go into a bicentennial park and chase people with a knife. Why? Because I'll get shot. That should be your mindset. Criminals should be terrified of their potential victims. And the more people allow themselves to be disarmed, the less terrified of victims criminals are.
I mean, that's a good debate for gun control versus no gun control. We've talked about it before. Some of our most violent cities have our most strict gun control laws, so we have more violent crimes and more shootings in places that shouldn't have the guns anyway. And Yeah, I've talked to people about that a lot too. It's like I have literally arrested people who told me they purposely committed a crime to go to jail. There was a case probably over 10 years ago now where a guy went into a bank with a piece of paper, unarmed, put on the piece of paper, he's robbing the place. And then he went and sat down in the lobby and waited for the cops to show up. And then when they arrested him, he was like, it was something like he was sick, couldn't afford health care, so he purposely committed a crime to go to jail. And I've literally had criminals tell me they purposely committed a crime to go to jail. Why? They get a shower, they get a bed to sleep in, they get 3 free meals a day, they get a rec area, they can even get free education and trade schools now, and college education. We're offering all these recidivism programs and rehabilitation programs where some inmates are leaving with trade certifications. And so, what good does that do as a disciplinary or a deterrent? If our jails are no longer a deterrent for criminals, then what are we to do? And, I've told people criminals don't fear the cops, they don't fear the courts, they don't fear the judges, and they definitely don't fear jail. So, what is the only thing we can do to reduce crime? Well, to your point, we have to make them fear the victims. We have to make them fear retaliation from the victims. But we have so many states now that are defending the suspects more than the victims. And we have more states out there that are giving more rights to suspects than their victims. And it's like, well, that's why crime is running rampant. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to make them fear repercussions. I'm not going to go rob that person because they're more likely armed and I don't want to get shot. We
Or
have to make
somebody
them,
nearby is armed.
or somebody nearby is, yeah, I mean, we have to make them fear us
Instead, we
because
have like a girl who rides a bus gets stabbed in the neck, and
nobody does it.
steps in. Nobody tries to engage. They just they don't want to get stabbed too.
They just watch.
So
And then
they just
somebody
watch.
comments and goes, "Well, you don't know what that guy was going through." It's
It's like I don't
who
care
are
what
you
that guy
freaking
was going
serious?
through.
Like,
I could
this
not
is the
care less.
mentality we have now in our society. Is like we're trying to justify or come up with some kind of justification. You don't know what he was going through, or you don't know why he did it. It's like he just violently stabbed a girl. Who cares what he was
I
going
don't
through?
care about his mommy issues. I don't care about his daddy's
I
issues.
mean-
I don't care about his self-esteem. I don't care about his dog. I don't care about his education. I don't care anything about this person. There is no room for care. I want him out of society.
I want people to carry so nobody becomes a victim. If all the criminals out there are like, I don't know who's carrying now, or I do know who's carrying, I'm not going to go rob that dude. He's got his gun open carrying. Criminals need to start going, more people carry than people don't. And I don't want to take the chance on robbing somebody or committing a violent crime against them that's going to result in me getting shot. And that's how it should be because they don't fear repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like telling a toddler not to use a marker on the wall over and over and over again, but doing nothing to punish them when they keep doing it. They'll just keep doing it because, or they write on the wall, you tell them no, and then you give them a lollipop. It's like, sometimes I feel like we're rewarding these.
I will admit, you using that analogy is making me feel pretty embarrassed because anybody who goes to our gun store can tell we have a toddler from the walls.
Yeah, but half the time it's because our kids are watching him.
Yeah, still. I've had people literally walk in and go, "Oh, I see you have a little person," when he was like nowhere around.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he does his own art here.
And that kind of brings me back to I kind of wanted to touch on it last week, going back to the whole Maryville comment. We were walking around Maryville, and the guy's like, "Oh, you're just walking around," and another guy had commented and said, "Well, I was walking around," because we had said, we were talking about how you need the permit. And when that guy had commented and said, "Well, I was walking around open carrying in front of 2 Maryville officers on the Greenway, and neither one of them stopped to question whether or not I had a permit." Right? He said something like that. And I had a comment for that, and it was like, well, that's great, right? Because the officers are probably like, okay, cool, he's open carrying.
Yeah.
A lot of these
No bad vibe.
a lot of these officers around here are getting used to people open carrying, and it's like, okay, great. The officers didn't stop you. They could have, because according to Tennessee statute, we talked about that, right? Tennessee code is, we talked about
Intent to go armed.
the intent to go armed, but they didn't. Great. That's actually great that they didn't. But the point I wanted to make is that doesn't mean that they can't or they won't. Just because two officers in Maryville didn't stop you to question you doesn't mean other officers won't.
I mean, that's like saying I was driving on a suspended license. I passed by a cop and he didn't pull me over.
Right.
It's like, well, okay, yeah. So he didn't pull you over. But if he had, if your tail light was out or you
Right.
sped or something like that, and he felt the need to pull you over, it would have bit you in the butt that you were driving on a suspended license.
Right. Yeah. We talked about the intent to go armed, where officers have the right to stop you and question you, and that may not be true here soon. We talked about that, but it's like, that doesn't mean they are. It's not like every cop is going to stop every person. How many times have we been walking around open carrying and past law enforcement? Neither one of us has ever been stopped yet and questioned, right? Neither one of us, not one time has they even made a comment to us. And we've passed several cops before open carrying, and that's great. These cops around here are getting used to that, and that's great. But if you're on the Greenway in Maryville and they decided to stop you and you didn't have a permit, just to your point, well, it only takes once to feel the repercussions of that. So, just because one cop doesn't do it doesn't mean another cop's not going to do it.
We also had that one woman who came to do our enhanced carry permit class, and she was saying she's driven to Florida, 8 times
Yeah.
with her firearm without a license, and she's like, nothing's happened yet. And it's like, well, that's great. We are happy for you, but
Yep.
that's not going to help you in court if you ever get pulled over and they say, hey, you have Tennessee tags. I see you have a firearm. Are you licensed to carry? She's not going to be like, but I do this often.
I do it all the time. Well, that's great that you've gotten away with carrying a firearm across state lines without a permit. But it only takes once.
Yeah, and it could be she could go her entire life.
Oh, yeah.
And never get pulled over.
Yep.
And never get questioned. And, it's like, well, great for you. But
I'm not going to tell people to do that.
Yeah, it's like, but that's still not recommended.
Andrew over at Parabellum said I can get away with it. It's like, no.
You can drive your car your entire life without a seatbelt and one day get in a crash, get ejected, or one day never get in a crash.
That's like the sovereign citizens that go, I don't need a driver's license because I'm traveling. I'm not driving. It's like, but yeah, you never know. And, I talk to people about what to do during traffic stops if you have a firearm in your car. And I've had people be like, well, this cop did this. It's like, that's great. But that doesn't mean the next cop is going to do that. Or that doesn't even mean the same cop pulls you over next month and is going to do the same thing they did last time. So don't just assume that because one cop didn't do it, somebody else isn't going to do it.
You might have caught him at a time when he didn't want to deal with it.
Right. Yes.
Is there anything else? Oh, yeah. To the person who owns this dog, if you lost her, you can find her, or you can contact us. We will have her at the gun store, and you can reclaim her. What? You don't want to give her back?
Oh, I don't want to take her to the gun store.
Well, I don't want to come here. We'll take her to the gun store, and you can come pick her up. If you abandoned her and made her our problem, shame on you. I hope you get 50 ticks, because that's how many ticks I've pulled off this dog. I get tired of people in Monroe County dropping off dogs. And McMinn County. When I lived in Nyota, oh my gosh, the amount of dropped off dogs I found. I lived near Fairview Baptist Church, and 20 dogs a year at least would get dropped off. Everything from old dogs to new puppies. Obnoxious. Like, dude. But anyway, yeah, so either get your dog back or shame on you.
Well, thanks for watching.
Thanks for tuning in.
Again, as always, if you got comments or want to talk about it, I'd love to hear on anything that you have to say that I said.
Goodbye.